have my disability aid here, but I'm so excited to chat with you. The American dream would have us believe that our individual effort is what determines our wealth. But what if I told you that that wasn't actually true? Belonging is just as important as effort, and tonight I want to talk to you about why, what's going to happen, and what you can do to build it so that you can be more prosperous. Picture this. We are at a brewery downtown on the top floor. There are 20, maybe 30 women. It's raining. Inside feels like sunshine. Tables lined up, it's piled high with clothes, donated stuffed jeans, athleisure. We're kind of shuffling piles around. Women are going through things, holding them up to each other. It's a clothing swap organized by my friend Mo for Black Girl Boss, a sister community of my community. And we're trying to keep it neat, and I'm folding shirts for the umpteenth time. And I hear the music switch behind me to Lauryn Hill's cover of "You're Just Too Good to Be True." Here. And all of a sudden, I realize the whole room is singing along together, like a scene from a musical. And I stop, and I just took it in. When the song was over, a boss came up to me, and she said, "If you hadn't built this space, I wouldn't have anywhere to belong." And it's probably not what you would expect from women's business networking, but we live in a time where women are working so hard, and we're not getting where we want to be. And these counter spaces are so important so that we can be together to have conversations, to bounce ideas off of one another. So we have a safe place where we can burst into song. Belonging is not optional. It's protective. It's proactive. And it provides the fuel that we need to be able to achieve our prosperity. And that clothing swap was not the beginning, but it's indicative of this case study that we have, because it shows that when we build communities where people belong, hard work accelerates, and we lift communities up with us. 16 years as a teacher ended when I had to move suddenly and permanently to Florida because my oldest daughter was really struggling with her health. I create conditions for people to thrive. I was especially good at it. I loved it. I was great with the gifted and the neurodivergent kids. I thought maybe it was just like a mom thing or a teacher thing that you could make people feel welcome. But it turns out it wasn't, because everyone needs a place where they belong. And it's kind of hard to come by as an adult. And when we address that isolation, that longing for connection that is so prevalent these days, it unlocks the next level for all of us. So when I moved to Florida, I remember one night, I was here a couple of months, the kids were in bed, and I wanted a glass of wine. I didn't have a wine key, so I went outside with a bottle of wine and I put it in a shoe and I banged it against the tree. The cork pops out. It does work. I don't recommend it. So I came back and I poured the glass. And when I went to pick it up, I was shaking. And I just lost it. I crumbled to the floor, and I just cried. My nervous system was fried. I was lonely. I missed my son. I missed my husband. My daughter had such a long way to go to get well. I didn't know how I was going to cover bills. I didn't think this was how it would be at 40-some years old. But I knew that I needed more flexibility, that I needed more money, and I knew that if I stayed a teacher in Florida, the low paycheck and the workload, that wasn't going to work for me. I needed something else, but I didn't know what. I was giving it everything I had, so much work, but no matter how much effort and love I put into my teaching career, it wasn't going to provide the safety net that I needed for my family. And so, I needed to change. And at that time, I actually believed that if I just worked really hard, I could have whatever I wanted. Like the American dream says, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, guess what? The American dream is a myth, and it sets women up for failure because it is not a complete story. Now, I'm talking about women because that's my business. That's what I know. That's who I primarily work with. But I want you to hear me. If you are part of a marginalized community, if you're an immigrant, if you're a person of color, if you have a disability, if you're neurodivergent, if you are part of the LGBTQIA plus community, any marginalized individual, this is your story too. So please hear me. Now, I'm not saying your effort and your ideas don't matter. Of course they matter. And I'm not saying that if we as women, don't do what we need to do, we can't be rich. We can. But it's not sustainable when we do it on our own. We need something else. We need other women. Because belonging is, in fact, the foundational fuel for wealth. So, knowing I needed more money and more flexibility, I did probably the last thing someone that needs more time and more money should do. I started a business. You laugh because you know, right? And initially, I was not very good at the businessing part. I found a mentor, an old white guy, and I dressed up and I went to networking meetings, but I felt like a little kid playing work. I was struggling, and I didn't know why. So to answer that, I had to go back to my teaching roots, and let's talk about human development for a minute. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it's a psychological model that shows how basic needs as they are met support the ability to do greater things that take more energy, more concentration, stuff like that, right? So basically it says if your survival needs are met, food, water, then you can do things that come after that. Belonging is a stage in Maslow's hierarchy. So it shows us that it can be complicated and unsustainable if we try to build something on a shaky foundation. So here's me, low-paying job, sick kid, spouse and son, half a country away, settled into a completely new place with no friends. Clearly, this was the best time for me to start something new, obviously. But even though Maslow would not have recommended it, I did it. And then something happened that changed everything. I was hanging out in 2021, driving my car, and I had this thought, I'm going to start a women's networking group. And immediately I was like, well, that's dumb. I don't know anybody who's going to come. It wouldn't go away. It nagged at me. Eventually I thought, you know what? I'm a teacher. I'm a mom. I know how to make people feel welcome. I'm just going to do it. So I got up really early one January morning and I climbed over into my yellow chair and I got out my phone and I made a graphic. I chose a name and I opened a Facebook group. I called it St. Pete Girl Boss. It was supposed to be an ironic name. It is now a movement. I invited the 4 women I knew who owned businesses, and the floodgates had opened. We did not expect that 5 months later we'd have over 1,000 fans of this beautiful, inclusive community. 6 to 8 in-person events every month. A case study had begun. So many women were hungry for what this space provided that it became my full-time job that year. We all wanted the same thing. We wanted other women like us to walk along our pathway to potential with us. Because in our country, wealth is modeled around a very specific archetype. It's the 1950s ideal worker, right? He's white, he's male, affluent, maybe middle class, no caregiving demands, ready to climb up that linear ladder with his smiling family behind him, available all the time. If you think about all of the very wealthy men that hold power in this country, that's exactly who it is. Now, they work hard, but not harder. Of course they're smart, but there are a great many very intelligent people that don't fit that description. And if it really was just about hard work, then why in 2024 did women earn 85% of what men earned? You know why? Because they belong. We don't. We never did. And that makes a huge difference. So why does it make such a difference? Well, because it unlocks something that I've named prosperity pillars. It's an alliteration. I'm very proud of that. So when you think about what it takes to be wealthy, not to survive, but to really be prosperous, there are certain catalysts that really help with that. There are top 3 I want to tell you about. The first one is called psychological safety, being in rooms where you feel safe to take risks. Psychological safety, according to Google's research study, Project Aristotle, is the #1 indicator of success in a team or an individual. #1, psychological safety. The second prosperity pillar is connection. Your connections open doors for you. Interestingly, there's something called economic connectedness, and basically it's like having friends or network connections that are across class lines. That is the largest predictor of economic mobility. It's higher than what race you are, the kind of family you grew up in, the neighborhood, the college you went to. It's interesting that your mom was right about who you hang out with, so tell her thanks. And number 3, a mentor. You need someone who can hold the vision when you can't. You need someone who's going to tell you that is a terrible idea, and you will receive it eventually. You need someone who can give you the cheat codes and the map and get you where you need to be. Mentorship is important. 63% of women have never had a formal mentor. Without those, you're sprinting on sand. Once you have them, some traction can happen. And notice how those pillars don't really have anything to do with how hard you work. But they are the top 3 important things that will help you build wealth. So women like us, obviously, we can and do make money. But those things keep us from burnout, and they multiply our efforts. Because we've been systemically excluded from wealth and opportunity. That's why we feel imposter syndrome, y'all. We weren't supposed to be in those rooms. That's why the smartest women who try to thrive in toxic environments cannot maintain their best work over time, because they don't feel safe. Without professional belonging, it's very difficult to sustain our best work. And you know what happens when we bust our butts and we work really hard and we don't get where we want to be? Do you know who we blame? It's my fault. I didn't put myself out there. That idea wasn't very good. It's wrong. That's damaging to your mind, to your heart, and also to your wallet. Because belonging is as important as effort. So knowing that, it seems like the solution would be pretty simple, right? You're brilliant, you've got, great ideas, you're gonna work so hard. I'm gonna go find me some belonging. Well, it's not that easy. First of all, it's kind of tricky to find places, but even when you do, women are at the front of something we call time poverty. Networking is assumed to happen in your personal time. Personal time? We're doing caregiving, we're doing house things. If I have personal time, I want to wash my hair. Or, something like that by myself, right? Or perhaps you have trouble finding spaces because networking sucks. Sometimes it really does. The reason that you may not be comfortable with traditional networking is actually documented. It's because traditional networking often takes place in male-dominated spaces during times and activities that will make you feel unsafe, that feel risky to you. And it's also exhausting. There's something called the credibility tax if you network in mixed circles. Basically, you have to re-explain your expertise every time you turn around. And it's exhausting. It is very difficult to build mutual connections when you have to defend yourself every time you start a conversation. So when you are seeking, I want you to be intentional. Your time is valuable. And going into those places where you have to waste all that effort, it's not for you. So about a year went by, we had about 5,000 people, and I was invited to an award ceremony. And I'm sitting in the front row with my Jessica and my mom, my Kelly, chilling in a green dress. It was the St. Pete Chamber of Commerce Good Burger Awards, and they were on their last award. It was the most valuable burger. So funny to say it out loud. But it's their top award for someone who's made an impact in the community. And the nominees included the mayor, the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays, the president of the university, a beloved attorney, Doug Jackson, who wins all the things, and me. I was genuinely floored when they called my name as the winner. And not the kind of floor that I was laying on 3 years earlier, crying. Just I was flabbergasted. I could not believe it. Because all I did was design an intentional space where women, any kind of woman, could come and feel safe and comfortable. But even from the outside looking in, the impact was apparent. This was no small thing, this space. It profoundly changed trajectories and wealth stories of thousands of women. I saw a post on Girl Boss not too long after that from somebody named Courtney, and she said she didn't like networking, and she lurked for a year before she finally came in, and she said, I was wrong. I am so grateful that I was. Thank you for creating this space. And when I read that, I was genuinely moved and realized this is not networking. This is intentional ecosystem design. In intentional spaces like this, and they do exist in other places, right? Women barter, we refer, we connect, we hire each other. We see another woman doing something and we go, I can do that. If we can see it, we can be it. And she'll probably show you. We are often each other's first clients. We have a saying that there's a girl boss for that, and it's usually true, like in most cases. But beyond material wealth, we also have support. I had surgery last year, meal trained, didn't even have to think about it. When Hurricane Helene came through and decimated so many homes of these wonderful women, there were women who even lost things on their own that showed up with home-cooked meals, with muscle and a truck and a hug to gut out someone's belongings that were all lost. The magic that happens when we have connection, mentorship, and safety we enjoy, we have a name for it in this community. We call it the girl boss effect. And it comes from knowing that others are there for us. It is not unique to us, but when we are safe to be ambitious, safe to be present, safe to be vulnerable, and to come as we are, that is the place that I want you to build your legacy from. Nothing less. It's not just happening in St. Pete either. For example, there's a cooperative in India. The Self-Employed Women's Association represents 3.2 million women. And over the time that they've been operating, 300,000 of them are now economically independent. So, same principle, global scale, right? Belonging opens doors and provides you with the foundational pieces that your effort alone cannot do to propel you towards your goals. So, when you're ready to seek out some connections with people who get you, here's some advice. First, I want you to be intentional about where you seek belonging. If you're female, seek out female-focused spaces, because what happens is you might feel uncomfortable in transactional networking. Relational networking may be more comfortable. If you're neurodivergent or you have social anxiety, look for something that has some structure around it. That'll feel better to you than showing up and being like, hi, That doesn't feel good to some people. Second, I want you to be flexible. If time poverty is an issue for you, find online spaces that you can go to. Meet a couple people on the playground and you can rotate who's watching the kids. Try to find some way to make it work. It's necessary. Something is better than nothing at all. And third, remember, it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be a couple people that are doing the things that you want to do that lift you up and you do the same for them. As Maslow shows, once you are grounded in belonging, it unlocks the next level for growth. And you will be ready to connect with a mentor or to meet someone new. And you know what happens when you start doing that? Opportunity. And when opportunity happens, when you take those opportunities and you feel safe, you know what else happens? You start building wealth. If you have ever been told that you don't belong, I need you to hear me. You do not need their permission. Find your circle. When you leave here tonight, you have a choice. You can keep doing what you're doing, hoping they pull out a chair for you, or you can do what we did here in St. Pete, where we find the room, set the table, and make sure ambition, kindness, and being inclusive are served every single time as a non-negotiable. Because if we do this, our daughters, our granddaughters, they're not going to have to wonder why they aren't in the rooms where the deals are being made. We will have created so many rooms and so many tables and chairs that it won't even be revolutionary to support each other in business. It will just be how business is done. Because belonging is just as important as effort. And that is how we change the world, my friends. Together. Thank you.